And I heard myself saying to him, I said, basically, you could have dropped your trousers and farted at the microphone and I would have applauded.
Hello, Steve. You all right?
Yeah, fine. Very good here.
I've got Steve Pilkington here. Steve's a bit of a been very involved in the underground rock, progressive rock scene for ever since I've been involved in it. Used to write for Classic Rock magazine, Classic Rock Society magazine. He's always been involved in all that scene ever since I've been involved in it for a long time, hasn't he, Steve?
Oh. I have. In fact, I edited the CRS magazine for quite a few years. I started writing for them way back in the early 2000s sort of thing, but then I went on to do more and more, became features editor, and then I took over as editor. And then obviously the CRS actually had to fold a couple of years ago, but as it happens, if that hadn't happened, COVID would have seen it off anyway with no gigs and stuff like that. So.
And then you've got Velvet Thunder now, which is the sort of new website, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. That came along very much as a continuation because myself and Lee Vickers, who was the reviews editor on the mag, we thought, well, we've got unfinished business here because we've got so many contacts in the business and there's so many bands that we know and there's so many bands that need publicity, and a bit of a leg up the smaller bands and that it would be a shame not to carry on and use that. So we had a lot of good writers on the magazine who were also keen to keep working with us. So we kept much the same team together, and we just made the switch and went online, went digital, and it's gone really well.
Well, good on you. All the bands do really appreciate everything you've done, mate. So thank you very much on behalf of all the other nerds in bands who really appreciate your support. So thank you very much. All of us do appreciate. So now you're sort of prolific author as well. So for Sonic Bond, which is Stephen Lamb, who does Summer's End Festival and Winter's End, and he's a bit of a big name on that sort of underground progressive rock scene, isn't he? And you've written several books for Sonic Bond. So you got there's a Deep Purple one, a Deep Purple Rainbow one, yeah.
That's right. Yes.
Monty Python. So which ones have you written so far? So yeah, you got this. It's amazing. I'm really pleased for you, mate. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, the way it sort of started with it was that, I mean, I was so busy in the first place with the journalism and that, because I used to write for Prog magazine as well and stuff like that.
I remember.
And I was snowed under with all that, but it kept nagging at me. I thought, I've got a book in me here, because like a lot of journalists probably do. And I didn't necessarily think I had 8, but that's what I've got now.
That's amazing. Amazing.
The first started with I wrote Gordon Giltrap's official biography because I got to know Gordon through the CRS. And he wanted to tell his story, but he didn't have time to do it himself, or the inclination really to, he was a musician, not a writer really. And I said, well, this just coincides nicely. So I actually spent 3 years on that one before it was published, because I was trekking down the motorway to Gordon's place, which is 90 miles away, and I was doing that so often the sat nav in the car was basically going there on its own. But that was really that got my appetite whetted for the writing a book as a form thing, because that was really it was a labour of love getting into someone's head like that and write a definitive portrait of him, which he wanted to be. And like I say, it took a long time because when you're writing a biography like that and it's an official one, it's got to. It's not a surface thing of the music that is put out and that kind of thing. He wanted me to get inside his head and let people know what it was like to be Gordon Giltrap, and it's obviously he did it in full collaboration with me, and he checked each chapter as I'd written it that I got it right, and so we put that together very much forensically, and it came out really well.
Brilliant.
But by the time by the time that came out, I'd written my first song-by-song guide, if you like, which is a book called Black Sabbath Song by Song. That was for Fonthill Publishers.
Right.
And Fonthill was actually the company that Steve Lamb used to work for before he set up Sonic Bond on his own. And in fact, it was the short-lived song-by-song series for Fonthill that gave him the idea for the on-track series that Sonic Bond had been so successful with the same format. So after I wrote that Sabbath one, which did quite well and got some really nice reviews, I sort of threw him my lot with Lamsey there and the Sonic Bond thing.
Brilliant.
And I started writing for him. And the purple one you mentioned was the next one that I did. Like you say, it's Deep Purple and Rainbow, because what I did was, rather than just try and cover the whole of Purple's career, album by album and song by song, I thought, well, what you'll get there is you'll probably get a bit of a long tail off, because a lot of people want to follow the Morse years, a lot of people are really interested in, the 70s stuff and, the 80s, maybe when they reformed with Blackmore and that. But as it goes through the later albums, some people might think that there's a tail. And also there's so many that, you want to, there's a limit with that series to how much you can write. You can't make it a 300-page book because they work within it's a series, so it's fairly standard. So I thought, right, what I'll do is I'll just take it from when Purple formed up to when they first split in 1976, and then I would just take over the first few Rainbow albums up until Down to Earth in 1980, because I saw them as very much sort of a natural continuation of Blackmore, who was the thread through Purple. So
there's a logic.
I think there is, yeah. Some people have said, it's an old way to do it, but I think it worked quite well. And it was something that that was quite a personal one for me, because the very first gig I went to in 1976 when I was 14 was Deep Purple Mark IV at the Liverpool Empire, which happened to be the last gig they did before they split up.
Cool.
So the very first gig that I did was like Purple with Tommy Bolin, which is something that people, a lot of people say, God, I wish I'd seen Purple with Bolin.
Yeah,
and I happened to fall into that accidentally. But I went on from that. The next one I did was actually a bit of a left turn. It was the Stones, because I had the idea there with, I was very much of a Stones fan from mostly the Mick Taylor era. And I thought the Stones are another band who I could take a snapshot in history. So I did the Stones from the inception in 63 up until, again, 1980 with Emotional Rescue. And that is another one that I thought came out really well.
Brilliant.
So the Monty Python one you mentioned, that was...
that's a bit left field, isn't it?
Yeah, that was a diversion, because there was another Sonic Bond series as well, in addition to the on-track thing with the band's song-by-song thing, was a series called On Screen, which was anything television or film related. He did one himself based on all the Carry On films, that kind of thing, and there was one about Doctor Who and that sort of thing. So I took on Python with that, which is basically it's a full guide to all of the TV episodes, all of the films, and all of the albums. And it's as with the track by track music ones, it's a deep dive into trivia. You when you do these things, you got to go down to the deepest, darkest corners of the web that you can find.
That's what we want. That's what the nerds want. Yeah. I'm that man. I'm your reader.
Yeah. It's brilliant. Some of the little trivia that you can pick up. That's what I really love about.
I love all that stuff. Yeah.
Doing it, more. Wow, the better. But I know you're focusing on the Iron Maiden one.
Yeah, the Maiden one. So, I mean, Maiden were funny enough, I've just ordered your book on Amazon. So you've sold one off the back of it already. But yeah, certainly Maiden were the band I grew up with, and they were huge for me. So, and we were discussing on Facebook the other day about Maiden, and then I saw your book, and I thought, oh, great. So, yeah, I just wanted to ask you. So, why a Maiden book? Why was that a thing for you?
Well, Maiden were another band who they were weird. I was kind of there at the beginning with Maiden, but I came to fandom a little bit later because I was when the first Maiden album came out. In fact, before the first Maiden album came out, they had 2 tracks on the Metal for Mothers compilation album, which was Wrathchild and Sanctuary, and I loved Wrathchild. I wasn't keen on Sanctuary, and the whole new wave of British heavy metal thing, I was sort of I liked some of that, but other parts I wasn't so keen on, because I had a foot still in the traditional classic rock camp. I was your Sabbath, your Priest, your Heap sort of thing, and at the time, a little bit of a feeling that some of these bands had a lot of what we used to call at the time nuggets, which were like the 11-year-olds that had their brand new denim jackets with the patches sewn on the back and everything, you know. And it was like, you know, we were like a bit, you know, you see these kids, you know, we've been there, we've done it all, kind of thing. But actually, as it happens, those nuggets are now grown up to be the lifeblood.
You know
how it is.
Yeah, I mean,
I still remember. Nuggets.
Yeah. I mean, it's when so Maiden first came out, you know, with the Metal from Other thing and the whole new wave British, you know. So, as a fan of traditional classic rock, was that whole movement a bit of a shock? Was it, or sort of a?
Some of it was absolutely good. Some of my favourite bands in the new wave of British heavy metal were probably the ones that harked back to the traditional ones. Like, I was a big fan of Angel Witch. Yeah. They were my favourite
Sabbath
new wave of heavy metal. Yeah, Angel Witch were a fantastic band. They really were. And the more that movement carried on, the more that I really got into it. And the thing with Maiden was, I mean, the first time I saw Maiden actually was supporting Judas Priest. That was in 1980, and that was still with Diano was still with them, Paul Diano, and I must admit, I thought they were great at the time. You know, some of the guys I've been to the gig with who were like old school band, they were like, oh, Maiden, the Johnny Come Latelys on the block, they were, you know, a load of rubbish. And I thought, no, they were really good. I was impressed. So I thought, I'm going to keep an eye on these guys. And but it was when Bruce Dickinson joined that I really got on board more, because for the first 2 Maiden albums, I got that punky sort of edge, you know. It's great for what it is, but it wasn't quite where I was coming from. You know, I liked it when they got a little bit more of the epic.
Yeah.
When Dickinson came on board, and such a fantastic vocalist, Bruce Dickinson.
Brilliant.
I mean, he makes me sick because he can do everything. There's nothing that man can't do.
But he's, you know, I think he's got an element of the Gillan about him, as he's got a bit of that sort of big rock vocal, more of a classic rock singer. I mean, he's phenomenal. I love Bruce Dickinson. You know, he's brilliant.
Yeah.
I like all eras of the band, really. You know, but that you know, especially the early Peace of Mind through, you know, all that Peace of Mind through to Seventh Son is my favourite era of Maiden. You know, I love all that stuff. I just you know, when I was a kid, that was first album. Second album I ever bought was Peace of Mind. I was you know, I was 88. I was 13 in 1988, 89, so that was kind of peak Maiden, where they did Donington, and you know, they were the biggest metal band out there, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. God, it made me feel really old now, because I was 26 in 1989. So,
I didn't get to go to the gigs. I didn't get to see Maiden at Donington. I'd love to have gone to any. You know, I was too young to go to it all. But you know, there was such a for my generation, especially with Seventh Son, and when that came out, and you know, and then you know, they influenced the Metallicas and the Megadeths and you know, that stuff, and they sort of took they were the sort of key band, and they were a British band as well, so they were like a band that, you know, we could sort of identify with, really, you know. So what do you think you learned about Maiden from writing the book, that really, you know, was there anything new you sort of discovered on your journey through the book?
There was so much that I learned that was, I knew obviously all the basic facts about the band, but there was little things that just cropped up all the way through. Like I said before about the little gems of information that you pick up, like with Number of the Beast, like with the track Number of the Beast, they wanted to get Vincent Price to do the voiceover on that, but they couldn't because he was too expensive. As I apologise for the awful pun that I used in the book where I said Vincent priced himself out the market.
Yeah, awful.
Yeah, but actually the guy that they got in to do it, he was just like a sort of a jobbing actor sort of thing. But he went on later on to be the voice of Count Duckula.
Really?
And I think that's fantastic.
That's so cool. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
I just love that kind of thing that you pick up. That's the kind of thing that my mind thrives on.
That's brilliant.
And there was so much of that. But the thing with musically, I learned a lot about it as well, because when you delve into it, and I've gone into who plays which solo and all that, and you really start to develop an ear there for at first glance with Maiden, it's a generic sort of like metal soloing, but there's really there's a significant difference between Dave Murray and Adrian Smith, and Yannick as well.
Adrian's leads are so much more melodic, and well, they're both very melodic players, but Adrian tends to be flat picking, sort of melodic playing, whereas Dave Murray's all legato and moving around the neck. And I love both their solos, but they're really distinctive, aren't they? I mean, Adrian's such a good soloist as well.
Yeah, well, what I started doing actually, I started doing it as to test my own ears while I was doing it, because I went back obviously to all the albums, and I'd found this reference thing where it actually gave you the details of who had played each solo and which second it went to, like a different guy and everything. And what I did, I started, knowing that I had that information that I could find, I started testing my ears, and I was listening to each song. I said, right, see if I can spot it, which one's which. And as I went through, I was getting more and more right. I got my ears attuned to it. It was, and that was a great way of doing that. I found that knowing who was playing what really gave me an appreciation for the different styles.
No, I mean they're a remarkable band, because Yannick coming in again when he did. I mean, I remember the Holy Smoke single came out, and I remember his lead playing on that. So different to Adrian and Dave Murray's as well, because he's all about the picking hand. So everything be coming from the wrist rather than you'd have the accurate melodic stuff Adrian was doing. You'd have the legato that Dave was wearing, then Yannick came in with these sort of picking leads as well. So it was kind of I suppose more of a sort of speedy for the right hand stuff. So he's a very different player again. So, but I think that's a really cool thing. There are three guitarists who are very different. Dennis Stratton again, quite a different player, very melodic. Very, they've always had different guitarists. And they can really sort of shine within the context of those brilliant songs. Because, I mean, so what's your sort of favourite Maiden hidden gem in the catalogue? What's your favourite sort of rare song that people don't talk about that you think is brilliant?
Well, my favourite hidden gem is also possibly my favourite Maiden song as well, and it's one they've never played live, from the Brave New World album, and that's the Nomad.
Great! Brave New World's a great record. What a brilliant comeback album. What a brilliant comeback.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, it's still my favourite Maiden album, that, because, when they came back and did that, to me, that had everything. It had the classic 80s sound very much back with Bruce, but I love the three guitar lineup as well, because a lot of people said that, Steve Harris should have got rid of Yannick when Adrian Smith came back, but absolutely not. I mean, I all praise to Steve for sticking loyally with Yannick there, because he deserved it. Because I must declare me agenda here with Yannick. I'm a big fan of Yannick because I followed him for years before he joined Maiden. Because I first
White Spirit as well, wasn't he?
White Spirit first, yeah, because I encountered White Spirit when I saw them a few times. I used to go to gigs in a pub in Warrington back in 1979, 80, around that time. And White Spirit played there a few times, and they were an incredible band live. And everybody, when you watched, people would just like come away from the gig and they'd just say, Yannick, just watch his hands when he's playing. He's amazing, and he blew you away live. He was that good.
He was the same in a pub, but like what he is now. He was the same. He was playing the same sort of style in a pub as he is now.
Oh, absolutely. You could definitely see he was the same sort of player. He did the same sort of stage movements, all that kind of thing. Oh. He just came on fully formed. He came over as basically a rock star in a pub. He was one of them you just knew. He had star quality. It was a great band, but he in particular really had that star quality.
I think just before he got the Maiden gig, he was going to jack it in, wasn't he? He was going to give up playing, apparently. Imagine that being that good.
He didn't think it was going to happen for him. But if you look at it, I mean, he was spotted all along the way. People saw the potential in him because he got the Gillan gig because White Spirit supported Gillan on the Glory Road tour. In fact, White Spirit and Quartz, another band that saw the pub in Warrington, Quartz, who were a great band. And they both supported Gillan on that tour, and he particularly got them on board because he thought they were great new metal bands, and he wanted to give them a bit of a leg up. And when the opening came up in Gillan, he went straight to Yannick, because White Spirit were no more by that time, and he brought him in because he'd watched him and almost mentored him in a way, and so he got his big break in Gillan there, and he went on he played with Fish, of course, on his debut album.
Oh, yeah, he did do the Fish gig, and then he did Bruce's solo album, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, he did Fish's first album, Vigil of Wilderness and Mirrors, and people tend to forget that.
I forgot about that. He did that, actually. Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot all about that.
Yeah. And I think that, there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of stick that Yannick comes in for now from Maiden fans where, they'll say, what's the point of Yannick Gerzer? They start rumours that he's not even plugged in on stage and all that. And it's a bit of a...
I can hear him playing.
Yeah, I think it's...
Style,
I think he deserves a bit more respect than that because he's a great musician, and if you listen closely to the work as a 3-guitar band, it's not all even about the soloing because there's a lot.
They've arranged it very cleverly.
Yeah, all 3 guitars are doing different things a lot of the time, and it says a lot about music.
It says a lot about Dave and Adrian, actually, the way they've brought him in and made it work. You always get. I've never met any of those guys from the band, but you always get the impression they're very decent people, don't you? So you always get a very good, that they made it work, and they've, you always get a good vibe off them, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's always been an all-for-one attitude in Maiden. The band is bigger than the individuals, and that's carried on throughout the whole history of the band. And I think that does you never really get any except for perhaps with Dennis Stratton, there was a little bit of ugliness when he left, but generally there's very little bickering and backbiting that goes on in between members when they've left and come back and all that. It's always been
I've watched all the documentaries, and there's a thing where one of the guys who was in the very early Maiden, like I say it's just like a big family, and we're still all friends, and it's just really cool, isn't it? They all seem to be. But I mean, I think Steve Harris had out of all the British musicians, of his era and beyond, he had a vision, didn't he? He had a vision for this band that he made happen by bringing in the right people at the right time, writing all the songs, working his arse off. And I think he's one of those guys. He's a big hero to me because of his vision and his hard work ethic, and he's the real deal, Steve Harris, isn't he?
One of the interesting things that shows that vision he had for the band is the first part of the book is like a history of from when the band started to over the 4-year period to when they recorded the first album, because they started in late 1975, and there was, I forget the number. There's something like about 15 members came and went in those 4 years. It was a revolving door, and Dave Murray, I think, was in and out of the band 3 times.
Yeah. I mean, and had a guitar player like that.
Steve Harris, he knew what he wanted, and he had to get. And once he got the right Maiden together for his vision, that was it. But those first 4 years were very much him moulding what he had. It had to be right. And he's been proven absolutely right over the years with it.
How much do you think that Di'Anno was a different sort of metal frontman helped them early on? Because I think whether you like Di'Anno a lot, I think he certainly stood out from the crowd as a metal frontman, didn't he?
He did, and I think basically there's two edges to that. I mean, I think Di'Anno helped a lot because when he came in, he fitted the punky new wave of British heavy metal thing, and projected that sort of image that put them a bit removed from the older, the Angel Witch with the loom pants and the Sabbath riffs. It did put them, give them a different identity, like you said, to give them a leg up. But I also think that he had to go when he did because they had to move on. They would have gone a little bit. For me, I think they would have ended up in a bit of a cul-de-sac.
I don't think they would have been able to do what they did in America with Di'Anno. I don't think the Americans would have gone for it. I think it was Bruce Dickinson. I mean, when I was a little kid, I used to come home from school and watch Live After Death, the video, over and over again. And like my mates would come around, we watched 12 Wasted Years one night and Live After Death the other. that was how exciting our lives was at the time. And I watched Live After Death. I mean, they were incredible. That stadium gigs. I mean, that was. What was that, 3 years after Bruce joined? 2 years? 2 or 3 years? 3 years, yeah.
82, so, 3 years. Yeah.
So, I mean, to go from where Maiden were, which was, a successful band, to doing 4 nights at, the stadium shows and stuff, it's just unbelievable, isn't it? Long Beach Arena.
It absolutely is. Yeah, and another thing I loved as well is, I was coming from the background of being, I was a prog fan as well. I grew up in the 70s with Sabbath and Zeppelin and Purple on one side and Genesis and Yes and ELP on the other, and I loved all of that, which, a lot of people forget that metal and prog fans were very much a similar breed back in the 70s. You liked one, you liked the other. And I just loved it when Maiden moved on and they started incorporating more of that, because Steve Harris was always a big prog fan. Like the B-sides that he used to, which I cover all them in the book as well, that he did things like Cross-Eyed Murray and all that kind of thing.
Nectar. He's covered in Nectar. Unbelievable. Just really like...
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Progger, isn't he?
Yeah, and when they started finally giving full reign to that with Power Slave, and they come up with Rhyme with Ancient Mariner, that just blew my head away. It was just incredible. It was when Power Slave came out, and I at last, that's what I wanted Maiden to be. And they were moving on to doing that when Dickinson came in with Number of the Beast and Peace of Mind. But when Power Slave came out, that my Maiden have arrived. That's still my favourite of the 80s albums. It's got that perfect marriage. It's got the epic, like with the epic side with Ancient Mariner and the title track and that. But it's also got the cracking straight ahead metal stuff on it as well.
Yeah, we've got two openers on the Maiden now. When it's the first 2 songs, and then it just goes, it goes more and more prog as it goes on, isn't it? But
it's just brilliant.
I mean, that era of Maiden for me. Everything I know, that was the first band I always thought that's what metal was. I mean, I think they call it prog metal now, wouldn't they? But in those days,
they certainly would.
In the late 80s, when I got into it, I was into Guns N' Roses, Iron Maiden, Megadeth, Metallica. I just thought it was all the same stuff. So I didn't know that Iron Maiden were bringing in progressive influence. I just thought that was what bands sounded like. I thought they all did 30-minute songs. There was anything weird about that. And I was, everything that, I've learned about progressive music comes from Powerslave and Seventh Son, because that's what I loved when I was a kid. I still love that stuff. It's brilliant.
That was one of the things that I know Steve Harris really wanted to do. He wanted to put a lot of that stuff across in the, by means of him doing what he was doing. He put his own influences across without, he didn't just say, right, I'm going to go full into it and do a 40-minute album with mellotrons, a 40-minute piece with mellotrons that sounds like Floyd.
No.
1973.
Yeah.
Did it all within the metal framework, but he put enough of that influence in that it left a trail of breadcrumbs for people to follow to find that other music, and brilliant.
It worked on me. I mean, that's where when I went to dub guitar lessons and got into King Crimson and the Mahavishnu Orchestra. I mean, I think probably I like King Crimson and the Mahavishnu Orchestra because I still like Iron Maiden, Powerslave era Maiden and stuff like that, because it's got that energy to it and that power and that, I mean, I've been to Maiden a few times, and they're one of the few bands when they come on, they do the UFO intro and all that, and I get a bit emotional when they come on. I can't help it. I get really just there's something about it, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely, there is. Yeah, and another thing as well that you're talking about things that I learned as well. When I write these books, one thing I do delve into a lot is the cover artwork, because I come from an era where I don't divorce the cover artwork from the album. For me, it's I hate the fact that it's become less important now. Because I can't hear Dark Side of the Moon without seeing the cover, that sort of thing. I can't hear Yes albums without seeing Roger Dean artwork. And Maiden had that with Derek Riggs, because he did all those covers. And there's so much hidden stuff in those covers that you just don't notice. I mean, Somewhere in Time, there's a whole big section of the book there where I've gone into all the little Easter eggs on that, and it's fantastic.
But when I was a kid, I used to sit there and look at in the Live After Death one as well. Then you could pull it out and then all the photos and Bruce doing this and all that business. Yeah, I used to take all that stuff out, and I used to sit there in my room and I used to listen to look at it and listen to the and imagining what Oh, it was just so exciting at the time.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Yeah. And Derek Riggs used to put his little symbol in every one of his covers. They're always there. So I've gone into pointing out where his symbol is. Sometimes it's a little bit hidden, and sometimes it's a bit obvious. But I've located them. I love that sort of thing, and I think a lot of people who do these books only just give a glancing nod towards the artwork, but for every album, I do an actual section on the album cover, because I think it's important in looking at the whole album as an entity to go into the cover artwork as well.
Yeah, it was totally entwined for me. The whole thing of, the T-shirts and the singles and the all the albums and the artwork and the stage shows and the Big Eddie and all that stuff. It was all one big thing for me when I was a kid. That's what sort of drew me in. There was all sort of one amazing sort of experience, you know what I mean? So it was just one sort of big thing. So Brave New World's your favourite Maiden album? What's your least favourite Maiden album? That's difficult to say, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a difficult one. I would say might be a little bit contentious here. One of the ones I'm less enamoured with is Killers.
Yeah,
I thought Killers was a little bit more of the debut, but not quite as good.
Yeah, I mean, Killers
was more adventurous, but there was a spark of originality and genius that was missing from it a bit.
I suppose it's one of those things you get your whole life to write your first album, then you get 6 months to write your second, don't you? It's especially when they're on a roll like that. But it's got some fantastic tunes on there, and
it has, but just the odd bit of filler where you think, they were like
Gangland and stuff, which isn't quite so strong, isn't it? So there's the ones that aren't quite so.
Well, that's Number of the Beast, Gangland.
Oh, not Gangland. What's the weaker ones on? Oh, I can't remember what the weaker ones on Killers are. There's a few ones that aren't quite so good on Killers. I used to listen to Killers loads when I was a kid. But I always preferred the first one. The first one for the sort of really sort of powerful. But yeah, it's always hard to write a second album. Always seems to be the one that beats a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I think that was kind of look at that album. You can see where they were starting to possibly head towards that musical cul-de-sac, where Di'Anno really had to go from To Spread the Wings. I mean, a lot of people will be throwing their hands up now listening to this because the Di'Anno era Maiden has got its own fan club, really, that still believe that that's the pure and total Maiden, But that's the great thing about Maiden, is that everybody's got their own favourite period of it. I mean, people who love the Di'Anno era, I mean, great. I've got absolutely no problem with that because they were a different entity. If that punky metal thing really scratches your itch, there was few people that did it better. It just depends which side of Steve Harris's personality you want. And I like a bit of
less of there's definitely less of the prog element to it, isn't there? There's definitely that. It's definitely more that the sort of rock thing, isn't it?
Definitely.
Like I say, there's stuff on there that I really my era of Maiden is Peace of Mind through to Seventh Son. To be honest, that's the ones I really love.
Yeah,
Peace of Mind was, and I love Clive Burr's drumming. Though. I think Clive Burr's a fantastic drummer. So what about the Blaze era? How do you feel about that?
Well, the Blaze era is an interesting one because I, like a lot of people, largely got off the bus at that time. Bruce left, and I mean, Blaze Bailey, he hasn't got the voice that Dickinson has got. He really hasn't. But by the same token, he got a little bit of a rough ride because, on his own stuff, on the album stuff that's written for his voice, he's pretty good. He was never the man to cover the Dickinson era material because it was out of his range, and I think he got thrown to the wolves a bit live.
I mean, how many people could do that though? I mean, how many vocalists could do? I think he sounds fine on the albums that was. That he actually made with the band, but how many? Yeah. You're going to find another. But if you were to find someone to cover the classic era '80s stuff, the Bruce stuff, well, you'd probably find somebody who wasn't very distinctive in their own because they'd just be a second-hand Bruce Dickinson. So they were put in a very difficult spot there, weren't they? Yeah,
that's right. And I think the albums do come across as okay. I mean, there's quite a lot of filler material on. I mean, you got stuff like The Angel and the Gambler, which, they didn't really need to have that chorus going on for 2 weeks, which they seem to do.
11-minute long single, I think. That's very long. It's very long, but not a lot happened.
No, very little happened. But I think, there was enough interesting stuff on those albums. But when he had to do the stuff live, he got a bit of a rough ride from a lot of the fans, and it wasn't really his fault because it wasn't his material. He did his best, but also it hurt his voice a lot, having to try to sing that out of his range every night. Like, people don't realise that either. It did compromise his voice. So I do feel a bit sorry for Blaze, the way he's become a lot of people's
very talented guy, and I like Wolfsbane. I think they were, Wolfsbane at one point were kind of pushed to be the next big thing in this country, weren't they? Do you remember that 1990 or 91 or something around that time? And then it didn't really work out for him there. But so I think it's good that he got to do Maiden. And but when they did come back, when Bruce did come back, and that Wicker Man single came out, it was a magic moment. It was just like, oh, right, okay, this is and I think the Wicker Man is sort of one of the best. It shows off all the different sides of Maiden, doesn't it?
No, yeah. I mean, that whole album does, I think. You've got your straight ahead stuff like that. You've got stuff like anthemic stuff like the title track, which is the number one single that never was, really. It's so catchy and such a great song that really should be a massive hit single. And you've got the epics, so like I said, Nomad before, but you've got Blood Brothers. There's so much. There's about 4 10-minute tracks on that album, and you've got something like Ghostwood Navigator, which is it's just fantastic the way it bridges those two sides of the band. I just love that album. And when they did that tour, then they came back. That is the best Maiden show I've ever seen. Still, is the show I went to in Manchester on that tour. It was incredible. It had everything I wanted from Maiden.
It's very emotional,
and it also it put the strength of some of the Blaze Bayley material in perspective as well when it was given its full potential, because they did Sign of the Cross and the Klansman that tour, and you can hear that on the Rock in Rio album that came out. You hear Dickinson doing the Klansman, and you realize that's what that song could have been. Freedom and all that, and the huge flag. It was just amazing stuff.
I saw them on just the next tour after that. We did the first 4 years tour. Was it the next tour after?
Oh yeah.
I saw them.
It was. I actually missed that one. It's a shame.
Clive Burr, and they did like a special gig for Clive or something, and it was like to raise some money for it.
Yeah, the Clive Aid stuff and all that.
It was something like that. It was unbelievable. I mean, they were just so good. I mean, it's one of the best things I've ever been to. It was so good. And then I saw them again on the Somewhere Back in Time tour. And I'm not, because they tend to play the sort of big outdoor shows, which I'm not a massive fan of, to be honest. I saw them at the O2 show they did a few years back. But me and my mate, the bass player from the band, we were right up in the stalls, right at the top. So it was like you couldn't really see what was going on, to be honest. It's no fun right at the back. Things you want to be right down the front, don't you? But I mean,
one of the things that one of the things that they got a lot of stick for, of course, was when they did the Matter of Life and Death album, and they played the whole album on the tour. And a lot of people were complaining about that. But the thing, I think a lot of people kind of missed the point a little bit on that, because the band were complaining, and a lot of the fans were saying, these people that are whinging about it, they just want to hear the Trooper for the millionth time and all that, But no, I think there's more to it than that. I think where the band missed a trick is that if they were going to play the whole of that album, which is fine, remember it's a very long album. We're not talking about a 40-minute album anymore. We're talking about like an hour and 10 minutes or so. And the show itself wasn't, they had a support band, so the show itself wasn't that long a show. And basically, they did that album, and they came back, and there was only about 4 more songs that they did after that. So, and I was like, no, I don't want to just hear the Trooper for the millionth time. What I want to hear Brave New World again. I want to hear something from Down to Death. I want to hear Passchendaele. I don't just want to hear all the old stuff. But I think if you're going to do something like that, if you're going to take well over an hour of your gig, I think what you got to do is go out without a support band and do a long show in 2 parts. They should have done the first part of the new album and then come back and done at least an hour of older stuff. That would have worked a lot better.
That's what Rush did on the Clockwork Angels tour, didn't they? They opened, I saw Rush, they did the whole of Clockwork Angels, and they came back on and did 2112 and then loads of 80s stuff. And they were brilliant.
Yeah. And I think if Maiden had done that on that tour, I don't think they would have had the stick that they did. It wasn't that people were unreceptive to the new material or they were stuck in the 80s. It was just because it was unbalanced with the length of the show.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the thing, isn't it? People, I suppose it's always the thing with bands that have got a massive catalogue like that. Marillion have the same problem, don't they? And, a lot of bands where the catalogues are so big, what do they play? You know what I mean? But I think with Maiden, I liked that album when it came out, actually. I used to play that quite a bit. But, there's so much nostalgia and so much, like I say, when you're a 13, 14-year-old kid and you're obsessed with the band, it's like, it's like
you've got to gravitate to that.
There's a bit of that. So you want a bit of both, don't you? I think that's the key, isn't it? So, the best time you saw them was with the Manchester show on the Brave New World tour.
I think so. That had everything for me. And it was a nice little full circle thing where the first time that I saw them in 1980, they were supporting Judas Priest, and the support band on the Brave New World tour was Rob Halford. That's
amazing. Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to believe. Years ago, wasn't it? I mean, that seems like 5 months ago to me. That was 20 years ago. Because I remember buying that Brave New World single and running home because I used to share a flat with some mates of mine, and I shared the flat and I'd run home with the single. You got to hear this, Maiden about, with the Wicker Man single. It's like they're back. And we put it on. And it was just like, and this is proper Maiden again. And I did like that. I thought Blade. I agree with you. I think Blade's had a rough time, and I think he's a really talented guy. But it was nice to hear. I think the biggest loss was when they lost Adrian, actually, more so than anything.
Yeah, because I was going to say that, because I would say that, much that the Blaze albums have the weaknesses, I think there's definitely an argument to be made to say that both of them are better than Fear of the Dark. I mean, I think the classic title track on that album masks a lot of the filler that's on there. You got to wait.
They sound like they're a bit bored, don't they? They sound like
absolutely.
They don't, and I don't think, from what I understand, what do I know? I mean, you never know what's going on bands from the outside, but they're a bit fed up with each other and they've been going a long time. And I never really took to Fear of the Dark, apart from the title track as well. I think it was always one of those ones that is Mother Russia.
Yeah. Is Mushy? Is that one, or is that No Prayer for the Dying? I always mix those up.
No Prayer for the Dying, Fear of the Dark are two that I'm not a massive fans of, to be honest. Now, Mother Russia's No Prayer for the Dying, but you're right. They've got a very similar feel, those two records, haven't they? And and I think, like you said, I think that losing the Bruce Dickinson, Adrian Smith songwriting combo, because that sort of, especially on Summer in Time, where there's songs like Clairvoyant, is that an Adrian Smith one that Steve Harris wrote at the end part of it? There's a lot of bits where there's ones that you get a big sort of Maiden, big choruses on Summer in Time, Seventh Son, and then you have a Maiden, an epic prog bit at the end that Steve Harris just sort of chats on the end of it, and but so I think losing Adrian was a massive blow to the band. Did you ever hear those Bruce Dickinson solo records from the ones Adrian? They're really good.
Great stuff. Absolutely superb. I mean, I'm not too keen on the first one. He did, the Tattooed Millionaire. That was
stock map, isn't it? But the ones that Adrian wrote, they're like proper Maiden. It's really good.
Absolutely, Balls to Picasso is a great album, and The Chemical Wedding, that's a fantastic album.
Yeah, really surprising. And I think it's you can definitely hear that. I think we made, and there's the prog Steve Harris long songs, and there's also a genius pop band in there. Heading Away, Even the Men Do, Can I Play with Madness? Absolute banging Spice Girls level pop songs. Just genius, massive choruses. And I think
Run to the Hills.
really great pop songs. And I think that's an element that perhaps they lost a little bit of during the 90s. Like I say, I'd love them to do another Seventh Son. I'd love them to do another album that's that kind of thing. But,
well, that's another one that I sort of, a little bit contentiously, I think Seventh Son was always a little bit disappointing to me. It's a great album for what it is, but it's not quite what it could have been. And in fact, Steve Harris has actually said this as well, where he had the concept for it as well, for the whole thing, but didn't go far enough with it. It was it ends up, it's kind of half a concept album. The second side runs very much as a story. Well, the first side you can shoehorn them into the concept, but I think they had a big conceptual double album story there, but pulled away from the brink, and as tried to put a foot in both camps. And it's not quite as good as a single album as Power Slave is, and it's not quite as good as a big prog epic as it could have been. It's kind of in between the two.
Yeah, you're right. It's definitely got as a concept, it doesn't really work. I think it's got really good songs on it. I just think the songs are really strong. Same as Somewhere in Time, the songs are just really good. Wasted years. I mean, the thing with them as well. I mean, and like there's a lot of songs that Wasted Years they haven't. I mean, Loneliness, the Long Distance Runner, that's a brilliant song, and it's another one they've never. I don't think they've ever played Loneliness, Long Distance Runner live. You know what I mean? So it's like, and it's like that's one of my favourite guitar solos ever. Adrian's lead break in that is just one of my favourite lead breaks of all time. And there's a whole thing of if you've got a catalogue that good and that big, I mean, what do you do? So. Steve, thanks so much for doing this. I can't thank you enough, man. It's been great. I love talking about Maiden.
Yeah. They've just mentioned the two things that I've done since the Maiden book.
Yeah, man.
I mean, the next one that I did after that was the first one in a different series, which is called Decades, which is another Sonic Bond thing where you take a band and do a biography, a detailed look at a certain decade in the band's existence. And I did Uriah Heep in the 70s for that.
Oh, cool.
It's like the first decade of Heep. And that was a great one. I really enjoyed doing that, firstly because it was out of the usual just straight, it was out of the disciplines and the constraints of doing a song-by-song guide. But also I was able to go into every song and, have fun putting your opinions in. But doing it as more of a biography, the stuff that was happened to Heap at that time, some of it was Spinal Tap. It was a fascinating story. But I enjoyed that one because I've got to give a lot of credit. I had a lot of help from the band there. I mean, Ken Hensley, rest his soul. He was very helpful with me actually before he died. He'd agreed to talk to me, and he had a good chat with me only a month before. So before about a couple of months before he died, and he was going to write a forward for the book and everything. He was really supportive, and in fact, I was due to send the first draft of the book over to him for his approval, and the very morning I was due to email that, he suddenly passed away, which hit me like a sledgehammer. But fair play, Paul Newton, who was the original bass player with the band, he stepped in after that, and he said, I love what you're doing. He'd read a couple of obituaries that I'd written about Lee Kerslake and Ken Hensley, and he said, I'd love to, have a look at what you're writing and everything. And he really loved it, and he gave me some of his stories from the early years and everything. And he ended up writing the foreword for the book himself, which was really nice. So that one was great because it had so much involvement from the band. Mick Box I'd spoken to quite a few times, the CRS and everything. So I had his input on a lot of things. So if I was going to, if I was going to advise somebody to read one of my books, I know it's like Sophie's Choice, picking your children sort of thing, but I would say the Maiden one and the Heat one are my two favourites. The Maiden one for the sheer amount of material and the depth of trivia, and all, but the Heat one just for the fact that I think it's a good, well-rounded story, and there's not a lot out there about Heat. And a lot of this stuff will be new to people. So I'm really pleased with those two. And also the next one I've got due out in October is another song by song in the On Track series, and that's Zeppelin.
Oh wow! I'll have to do another one with you now. We'll have to do a Zeppelin one next.
Yeah, and I have really enjoyed doing that one because I was a massive Zeppelin fan back in the day, and it was weird how it came about because Lambs was saying to me, "Who do you want to do next?" sort of thing, and I'm looking. I say, "Well, there's Zeppelin." I thought, but they'll have been done already. I'm looking. Nobody's touched Zeppelin yet, so I'm like, dibs on that one. And there's just
wow.
Oh, yeah. But one thing about my books that I'm always very keen to do, and some people give me stick for it, but more people are appreciative of it, is that I'm always honest about things. If something is not to put too fine a word on it, crap, I will say so. Because I don't think, to be a fan of a band, you've not got to be of the opinion, right, everything they've done is touched by the breath of God, because it's not. But I mean, I've had stick from. I had a review of the Sabbath book that was one guy did, where he basically said that there's no way I could possibly be a Sabbath fan because I had criticised Rat Salad, which is essentially a drum solo. I mean, everything isn't great. Every band has got its what were you thinking moments.
Well, I mean,
and there's more than a few in the Maiden book, and there's certainly a few in the Zeppelin book.
From playing in bands myself, I know that you have good days and bad days. I think most musicians say, I had a good day that day, that was brilliant. And another day, that's not so good a day. I was thinking about someone else. I think most musicians are all right with that, to be honest.
I know that when I read a book like that, because I read a lot of music biographies and things, and part of the fun for me is agreeing or disagreeing with a guy. You can say, "Oh yeah, you've nailed that one," or else, "What are you talking about?" and shouting at the book. I love that. So,
what's your favourite Zeppelin album then? Before we finish,
I'm wearing the T-shirt right now.
Oh well, yeah. The thing with Graffiti, because it's got all of Zeppelin now, hasn't it? Really, it's got all the
it really has.
I think over the last, I would have said House of the Holy for a long time myself, but I've really got into Presence recently. I really love Presence.
I've got into Presence more over the years. When Presence first came out, it really disappointed me.
First time I heard it, I thought it was really dull. But now I love it. I love Achilles' Last Stand. I love the rhythm section are just unbelievable on that record. They're just so good. But when I was a kid, I never liked it at all. I was never interested in it. I was always into the first four and House of the Holy and Physical Graffiti, and I wasn't interested in any of the rest of it. But now I really love Presence. I think Presence is really cool. It's just there's an eerie atmosphere to it as well. It's got a really weird, what's Jimmy been doing with the occult on this one? It's gone a bit weird.
Yeah, although unfortunately it has got Candy Store Rock on, but never mind.
Yeah, it's not. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not going to say it's the perfect Zeppelin album, but House of the Holy's got Jamaica on it. But there's I do have a bit of fun with Jamaica in the book, I must admit. Yeah. But, some of the sound, the thing that there's a way to say that you don't like something as well. There's no art in just saying that's crap. Where the art is making it entertaining. You can talk about something. I can have a lot of fun with the fact that what were they thinking here, and you can. I always try and put a lot of humour in my books, always, because to me. If you just want the facts, I mean, anybody can delve into the internet and you can find out what you want. You want a bit of opinion these days, don't you?
You don't need a reference book now. You want something that gives you those facts, but also is a good page turner. And I always try to put that in.
I think one of the interesting things, I think a lot of musicians quite like a bad review because it's quite interesting. I think if you listen to Robert Fripp loves bad reviews of King Crimson. He absolutely adores it because it's funny. It's just like, if you're going to read the bad ones and ignore, if you can't take any of it too seriously. And if you get a really bad review, I don't think most musicians aren't that bothered. I think they just enjoy that they've taken. Someone's actually took the effort to listen to it, and I think most people love a bad review if it's funny. If it's quite amusing. Have you met anyone in Zeppelin? Have you met anyone
in Zeppelin? Sadly, no. Sadly, no. I really wish they had. I mean, the closest I've been is working with Deborah Bonham. So I've heard a lot of stories about John from her, but I've never met anybody in the band. Sadly, I would.
Iron Maiden at all?
No, with Maiden, the only contact that I had with Maiden was back in the day with Yannick. I spoke to Yannick quite a lot when he was in White Spirit and about his influences and stuff like that. But that wasn't really admissible for the book, sadly. So he's the only one that I really knew personally.
Over the years, I've met loads of people but I've never met Maiden. I've never met Zeppelin, but. Because I've met loads of people in bands, and it's never been a big thing for me, right? But when I was a kid, those bands, they were the ones I had posters on my wall. They're my heroes, you know what I mean? Yeah. I've met, people in all the prog bands, people in loads of metal bands and stuff. It's never been a big deal to me, but I don't think I could talk to Steve Harris. I met Jimmy Page once. I couldn't speak to him at all. I was just like, I couldn't even make eye contact. I was so frightened. And I just wanted to give him a hug and say, I love you, man. It's just, you can't. I think they're massive.
I'm with you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many people you. I mean, I've interviewed so many people who were heroes of mine, but every so often one comes along where you're in a 14-year-old just starts jumping around and shouting. Okay, I mean, I'll tell you quite a funny story actually. When sometimes you hear yourself saying something and you can't stop your mouth. Like I was interviewing David. I was interviewing David Coverdale, right? Once when he did the Purple album a few years back, when he revisited all the Purple material, and with that being my first gig when I was 14, it was like it's David Coverdale. He was like God. And then I was talking to him, and getting on fine. We're talking about that show, and my inner 14-year-old was knocking on the inside of my head more and more, saying, "Let me out, let me out." And it got to where we're talking about that gig. I said, I went to that last Purple gig. He said, terrible gig that was and everything. It was so bad, It was basically they split up in the dressing room afterwards because it was so bad. But and I said, well, I thought it was fantastic. I said, I was 14. I said, I had no frame of reference, And I heard myself saying to him, I said, basically, you could have dropped your trousers and farted at the microphone and I would have applauded.
Oh, no.
But and I heard myself saying it. But to his credit, he said straight away, he said, do you know, that wasn't far off for that gig.
Was he really nice, Coverdale?
Oh, he was. Yeah, he was really good guy. But the other one where it did me head in a bit was when I interviewed Richie Blackmore by accident.
He's another one I'd be a bit edgy about going near Blackmore, to be honest, because he's got a bit of a reputation.
Well, I wasn't even expecting to do it because what it was, I was actually interviewing Candice about Blackmore's night stuff, and I was on the phone to her. And I was on the phone to her where they live over in the States, and I was talking to her. And she was really impressed with what we did at the CRS at the time, and she liked the way that she thought I was understanding the material quite well. And she said, "This is really good," and she was saying things like, "Oh, Richie thinks this, Richie thinks that," and I thought, why don't I just go for it here? So I chanced my arm. I just said, you keep talking about what Richie thinks about things. I don't suppose he'd just jump on and have a chat, would he? Because he's very picky about it. And she said, do you know what? Give me a minute, I'll go and ask him. So she goes away, and a minute later comes back and, hi, Steve, Richie here. You want a chat? And I wasn't even expecting to interview him. So
Oh, no. Oh, no. I don't know where you'd start with that.
No,
that's what you say as well, because he's a bit of an edgy character, isn't he?
Yeah, but no, he was actually fine. He was really, really good. He's I felt quite good about that because basically the reason he came and talked to me because she'd said to him, look, this guy, he knows his stuff. He's not just one of the... He hates interviews who just have a list of questions and they ask him, it's just a job for him. He doesn't suffer for fools, if you like.
That's good.
But the fact that he respected what I was and what I was doing, I thought that was good. And that's still one of my great memories. That
a lot of people. I've done a few interviews, for this YouTube thing and for when I've spoken to people. I think if you take the time to actually learn about what they've been doing and their career in music and show you've got a bit of respect, I think it does go over really well, doesn't it?
That's absolutely it. Yeah. Funnily enough, I'm sort of like I'm trading hats after this because at 5 o'clock I've got to talk to Preet Travis about the Fugazi reissue. So I'm going straight from interview to interview.
I must admit, I'm much happier asking people questions than being interviewed myself. I really enjoy doing this. I like talking to people. I'm interested in what you've up to. I'm genuinely interested. But when people start asking me stuff, I'm like, and you also think it's hard when you do it yourself, isn't it? But I've really enjoyed talking to because with this our YouTube thing, we only do it for fun on the side to keep us going between, because we don't do gigs at the minute because of COVID and that. It's just a bit of fun, and we only have people on we're interested in. So it's quite, you don't, because it's not there's no money in it, so we do it because we like doing it. So, but thank you so much, Steve. It's been really nice talking to you, man.
I've really enjoyed it. I'll always talk about myself. I'll always talk about anybody. If
you fancy doing a Zeppelin one, I'd love to do a Zeppelin one with you. I'd really.
Absolutely. Yeah?
Just let me know, mate. I'd love to do it. I mean, when's the book out? October time?
October, yeah.
Right, so just going to wrap up now. Where's the best place to buy your books, mate? Amazon, or is there somewhere you get more money?
You can get them all on Amazon.
Amazon.
The official sort of distributor is Burning Shed. I get a little bit more in terms of royalties that way, but Amazon, you can get them all.
So I'll put it on Burning Shed, the link in the video, so make sure, just so you get if anyone sort of goes buy stuff, make sure they buy it from Burning Shed. We like Burning Shed as well because they're good guys. They're lovely people. So.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I mean, you don't. I mean, it's the same as yourself making albums. You don't do this to get rich nowadays.
No, definitely not.
but you do it. But what you do is, the way I see it is writing books the same as recording albums. It's leaving your mark, isn't it? It's a bit like a Stand the Time thing, isn't it? Something people always say, he wrote these. You've got a body of work.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's important to do that.
Totally, that's exactly why I do it as well. I do it, and like I say, is why I do everything really, just because it's. A body of work. That's a really good thing to say. A body of work is what you want. But you certainly, over the last few years, bloody hell. I mean, what a run. You know what I mean? You've got loads of catalogues there.
Yeah, 8 books in 4 years now. So it's...
How is it?
Yeah.
All right, Steve, I'm going to start recording. Thank you so much, mate. I really appreciate it. I'm going to press stop.